Hello and welcome everyone to SCxSC 2021 and to this session in particular called Digital Fit for Future, brought to you by SCxSC's innovation partner, Rakuten. Now, my name is Azril Shane from the Digital Strategy and Innovation Department in SC, and I'll be your moderator for today. Before we start off, let me just introduce our panel as joining us today. So we have Mr. Kazumasa Mise, Chief Executive Officer and Chief Marketing Officer as well for Rakuten Trade. He has over 16 years of experience in the capital market industry, specializing in fintech and digitalization of capital markets, equity trading, and asset management. Next, we have Muzaffar Uthman, CEO of Jewel Digital Ventures and CTO of Temandalan Nasional Berhad, one of the nation's leading asset management companies with approximately 322 billion ringgit in assets under management. And last but not least, we have the lovely Kalyani Nair, Group Head of Virtual Banking, and is responsible for the digital banking business of Maybank. In the course of her career, she's pioneered a number of innovative services in the online and mobile space, including the new May by Maybank TU app. So first of all, how's everybody doing today?
Very well, thank you.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Good spirit, I hope. Fantastic. So just before we start, I'm just going to fill in the audience a little bit about some info on how they can participate in the Q&A session that we'll have at the end of the panel. So I'd just like to remind everyone that you can interact with Slido for the session. I think it should be on your right-hand side. So to participate, all you need to do is select Digital Fit for Future on the drop-down menu on the right side of your screen. You can ask the panel any questions, you can share ideas, and even interact with our polls as well. So we're looking forward to hearing some of your questions and thoughts on Slido. All right, now that's out of the way. So let me just give everyone a little bit of flavor onto what we're talking about today. So in today's panel session, Digital Fit for Future, we will be discussing transformation, in two kind of parts, digital, as well as a little bit about the cultural transformation that we're going to have as well, right? And how that looks like for companies and organizations in the coming years to catch the wave of the next generation of consumers. So on that note, to kick things off, I'd just like to get some insights from each and every one of you actually. Just generally first, what are your thoughts on the digital transformation within the financial industry in the region? First, perhaps we can start with Mise, and then we'll go on to Muzaffar and then Kalyani. So Mise?
Yes. The digital transformation is just a techniques. So we are the Rakuten Trade, everything online, account opening, deposit, and the trading. But the most important thing is we hear the customer voice. So we enhance our system services using the digital transformation technologies. So this is our business model, and it's very important to hear the customer's demand and the customer's voice.
Muzaffar?
Yeah, well, my view on digital transformation is basically survivability of any organization. I think in the last couple of years when we had COVID, well, we still have COVID, but it accelerates that requirement for you to engage your customers digitally. So I think an organization needs to do this regardless. It is about their own future sustainability anyway. So it is a program and it will be accelerated given the current conditions. And I don't see digital transformation would disappear in the next 5 or 6 years. It will continue. In fact, it will continue harder.
Fantastic. And lastly, Kalyani, we'll get your thoughts on that as well.
Sure. I think when we speak about digital transformation, it's about transforming it from the fact that you look at it from a customer viewpoint, right? Digital is a means to an end. It's the tools that we use. But the transformation really comes from us looking at customers and understanding what they need or what they might need, which they're not even aware of. And then you create those services or those features that help fit that. And digital is just a tools or means to get there. So that's my view on digital transformation.
I think you've hit the nail on the head right there. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. It's all about kind of getting to what the consumers want, what the customers want. Sometimes they might not even know what they want. So that's good. That leads us to kind of like the next segment. And for this question, I'd like to get your thoughts on this first, Mise, actually. So we've seen a lot of advancements in digital services, especially in the financial industry, right? And this has kind of changed the way we deal with financial institutions and how we consume its services. And Rakuten, I think, is a great example of that, right? As a digital broker that has recently seen a lot of success. So my question for you is, what are the behavioral changes that Rakuten has identified, among its investors, and how has that, or how did that affect Rakuten's strategy in delivering its services back then, now, and looking into the longer run?
Yes, and first of all, once we launch the business, we expect kind of the trading savvy trader coming into our platform, but right now roughly the 80% of them is less than 3 years experience, and they're below the 40, below 40s. So the totally different, and we are exploring the new segment of the people, and then we educate them and to trade more and more. So yes, it is a challenge for us to get such kind of the savvy trader into our trading platform, because we are everything online, where we don't have customized services to the client. We don't have any of the salesperson. To be honestly, I don't know at this moment how to engage them. But the most important the thing is, as I mentioned, the first and the digital transformation. We have to look at the customer. Yes, our client is a beginners. Okay, 40s, it's okay, no problem. So we educate them for their future asset managing. So in that case, and we keep listening the current client voice, and enhance our services by using the technologies.
Got that. So, yeah, it's so important to be open and to be able to listen to what your clients want and what they need, and to be able to deliver the services as well as
correct,
right? So very, very good point there. Muzaffar and Kalyani, would you guys also like to add on to this? Perhaps from your own perspectives, from Maybank and PNB, how have you guys seen behavioral pattern changes, and how has that affected the way that you all deliver the kind of products and services that you guys do? Perhaps Kalyani, we can start with you first.
Sure. So I think behavior will keep changing. It never stopped changing, right? It's not a change that we're just seeing in the last 2 years or the last 5 years, right? Behaviors will keep changing as the generations grow. We'll have different mind shifts happening. And an organization should always have their pulse on customers. If your pulse is always on how customers behave, what their intent are, and what they need, then I think the flow will be a much better flow, right? So for example, to Muza's point, right, we're talking about the COVID situation. 2 years prior to this, or 1.5 years prior to this, you notice that a lot of customers were still coming down to the branches, right, to get their transactions done and all that. But the pandemic totally shifted people's behavior, right? Everyone was ordering food from home. Everyone was transacting to Maybank to or to the May app. And behaviors have changed. Times have shifted. Mindset has shifted. And we need to build on that. So if we keep building on that, today it could be COVID, tomorrow God knows what it will be, right? And so we need to keep building on that and keep our eyes straight on the customer. And if the whole firm believes that the customer is a central part of whatever we do, then it's a good chance that we will keep building and developing new ideas and new creations that are meaningful to the customer. I think that's the only way to do it. Always keep the customer at the central point of whatever you do. Don't look at it from a product-centric point of view. Don't think you're going to come up with the next great mortgage product or the next great savings product and believe that customers will come rushing through your online door. That will never happen, right? So if you look at it the other way around, then you will always be relevant to the customer. So that's my take, Asrul.
Very well spoken, very well said, Kalyani. Moving on to you, Muzaffar.
I echo Ms. and Kalyani's view. From a personal journey, if you look at it, my parents invest in the past, and then I invest now. And then my kids will invest in the future, or they have invested already. by virtue of me forcing them. But the fact is, my parents' way of engaging any kind of a businesses are different versus my way of engaging. And absolutely that my kids have never gone to any branches, as far as I know, to do any of their transactions. Everything is their phone. So the shift, I call it a demographic shift. It could be a customer journey shift. The shift will continue. When I have my grandson or granddaughter, for example, if I live long enough to do that, their expectation will be slightly different than my son's expectation. So for us, as an organization, we just need to know who are our customers now. The branches still exist. There will be my mother who would like to go to branch because for her, doing business on the phone is totally foreign. She doesn't believe in it, right? So the branches will be there, but the customers will become less and less, and the digital will be more. But in the future, there could be something else that's happening. So we, as an organization, we just have to be very in tune to what is the mode of engagement that our clients want. So once we know where they are, then we can engage them regardless. Physical, virtual, digital, we're there. So just a quick view.
Lovely. I'm glad that you mentioned, both you and Kalyani mentioned about how, for some people, your first interaction is no longer at the branch, right? Your kids, for example, Muzaffar, even for me, some of my personal kind of experiences is I don't go to the branch anymore, straight to the phone, right? And yeah, I'm going to follow up on that a bit later in the session because I do have a question on that. But before we move on to that, let me just go on to kind of like the next question, right? So following up from all of that and what Kalyani mentioned earlier, so nowadays, demand for like seamless delivery and integrated technology in consumers' daily lives, right, is more than ever. So people want like customized, adaptive solutions to deliver specified outcomes. And fintechs generally have done pretty well to cater for this. So the question then here is, how can traditional financial institutions overcome challenges such as like legacy issues to deliver these products that people want at the speed that's required? So perhaps maybe, because Kalyani mentioned this earlier, perhaps we can start with you first, Kalyani, and then the rest of the speakers can give your input on that as well.
Well, I think the first thing we must remember is that we need to put aside legacy, right? If you're going to build for the future, if you're going to build for the current generation, put aside what you have from a legacy standpoint. Look at it from a blank sheet of paper and create from there. So I'll give you an example of what we did for the Me app. We had a very decent app to start off with, which is the Maybank 2 app, which was doing very well. People loved it. But then we told ourselves, what if we started again? What if we had a blank sheet of paper? How would you interact with your customers? Because you must remember one thing. When we wake up in the morning, we do not think of going to a bank, right? It is not second nature to us, right? You wake up in the morning, you want to grab your cup of coffee. You wake up in the morning, you want to get on that train ride, or you want to buy a present for your family or for your girlfriend. That's what you think of. You don't wake up in the morning thinking, yes, I'm so excited, I'm going to a bank now. Do you? No.
Nobody does.
Nobody does, right? That's not a natural behavior. So when we developed this new May app, that is how we looked at it. We put aside legacy, because the moment you start thinking about what are the legacy systems around, what are the legacy policies, what are the legacy operational issues you have, you will never create for the new generation, right? So that's how we did it. We looked at it from a blank sheet of paper and we envisioned ourselves as customers. We spoke to customers. We had lengthy discussions with customers, and we understood what the pain points are. We understood where the friction was. And those frictions were not about products, but it was about how they led their daily lives, right? And understanding that is how we came up with May. Because when you look at May, it's about understanding expenses, because that's what's in your mind, right? The next time you're buying a birthday present or you're buying a gift for a loved one, how much can you afford, right? And do you have enough for a rainy day put aside, which is something which a lot of Malaysians today struggle, to be very fair, right? So that is how we came up with things like a tabung. Tabung in English is almost like a coin jar, right? Where you can start saving little by little in the efforts to get to a certain goal, whether it's to buy a present, whether it's to save for a rainy day, whether it's for your kids' education, or even something for yourself, right? And that's something that all of us does. For example, and I'll tell you this personal anecdote. A couple of months ago, I went to my husband and said, you start saving now. for my birthday present. And the man actually did it, right?
He's a good man, listens to his wife.
Yes, and he had the exact amount that the wife wanted him to say back to.
Very good.
Right? So, but these are all personal stories that resonate with all of us. And if you can create something that resonates with your own personal needs, then I feel you have done something for your customers rather than looking at it from a legacy point of view. So that we need to push aside in totality.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. Muzaffar and Mise, would you guys like to add in on that as well?
Actually, for
go ahead.
Oh, is it me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me say, go ahead first.
Go ahead, Mise.
Oh, okay. I don't feel any of their legacy issue here except for their client acquisition. But the system point of view, the operation point of view, the legacy issue, a lot of brokers has a lot of manual processes. But during the pandemic period, and our staff, okay, work from home, 100%, because of all of their our tasks and the operations, even though the customer service, everything is here using their computer, the PC. So that's why we can achieve such kind of the great and business during the pandemic. For example, due to that, and yes, we acquire a lot of account opening. We settle a lot of account opening, and a lot of traders enjoy our systems. So that's why we don't face any of the legacy issue for our operation. But the customer, yes. So how can I say to tackle with this issue? Yes, as I mentioned, listen to the customer voice. This is important. Thank you.
Lovely. Right. Finally, Muzaffar.
Yeah, I think to add to Mise and Kalyani, being a CTO, I'm always thinking about technology, right? Legacy has always been an issue. So it will always been, and it will always be in the next 100 years because technology shifts so fast. So it shouldn't be a factor in any conversation, to be honest with you. I'm also a believer of a saying, for you to be, you need to do, right? I'm not too sure this is where it's coming from, but I just have this conversation with a lot of people. For you to be, you need to do. So for us in our organization, if you noticed, I'm also double hatting as a CEO of Jewel Little Venture, which is basically a small outfit that is a listening post for innovation outside. We also build a lot of MVPs for PNB and ASMB. In other words, if you use a normal process, it would take us years to do it. But if you just use the quick and dirty process, it's going to take us 3 to 6 months just to build something that's workable. So it is doing something now so that the whole organization can be more innovative. So it is a bit more about culture change. And you realize we also invested in Raise MY, which is a micro investment platform, right? So it's just one way for us to force ourselves to deal with changes and make sure we can head on having those challenges properly from a culture perspective. Technology will always be there. Legacy will always be there 100 years from now. So that's just our take on it.
Lovely. I love all your answers. And I like how, a lot of the conversation right now, there's a recurring theme of always being there to listen to your clients, listen to what they want, and, to kind of go through what their user journey is like and how we can make that as best as possible for them, right? And that's great because I think that's a great way to kind of like attract clients to come to you and kind of use your services. But now I'd like to move the panel's attention to actually the subject of loyalty and being able to keep your clients with you, right? So just to kind of like set the tone almost, the way in which a lot of us consume content online nowadays is quite aggressive, right? So people demand content rather quickly and as easily as possible, especially in the younger generation, where I guess we could say there's a lot of instant gratification, right? And we see this in a lot of social media as well, and the kind of social media that's popular right now. So, we look at TikTok, we look at Instagram stories, Instagram Reels, where it's all like 10, 15-second video things, right? And even YouTube now is having YouTube Shorts, which is pretty much the same. So one to another, you switch between these kind of apps that give you little bite-sized pieces of content. And so with the plethora of apps that are like available out there, and with this kind of behavior that we're seeing, so relationships between FIs and clients, especially the new younger clients, it can be quite brief, right? So the slightest inconvenience means that I'll decide to switch to another banking app or another investment app, for example. And this trend can be quite scary for conventional financial services in the coming years. So perhaps we can start with you, Muzaffar, to follow up from that. What are PNB's plans to attract and to keep the next wave of clients invested with you?
Okay, so perhaps I give a bit of background. In our 12 million customers that we have, majority are older than the guy who runs digital. There are only 2 million people who's using our app, as opposed to the rest of the other 12.7 million people who are still transacting either via our agent like Maybank or Post Malaysia and the rest. So loyalty for those customers who are at the branches, they want to go, will still be there. We'll make sure that they come in, we'll greet them, the processes are there. We will not going to ignore them. The newer generation that we had, we start to realize the shift in demographics in 2017 when we're doing some core system migration, right? So we have always been believing that we need to evolve every month, to be honest with you. So the journey is 2017, we built a portal. So we allow people to come in. I know we are way behind. Maybank has done it for decades, even before that. So 2017, we built a portal. 2019, we built an app. And the app changes every 6 months. If you are part of my unit holder, you will see my app changes every 6 months. Not because we want to, but we just find a better way to serve the customers. Every 6 months, we discover people are complaining, I cannot do this, I cannot do that. And the journey continues. Only recently, we launched eKYC. Now we realize people don't even want to go to branch at all to even open an account. Yeah. While we are thinking about people who are using our app, we fail to get the younger generation who said, I'm not going to go to branch. Either you onboard me, eKYC me now, or I'm not going to be your customers. So we built that as well. And we have like what Kalyani have, Tabung, we have goal-based investment. Okay, I'm not going to ask people to buy me gifts, but it's a similar concept where people could have a directed way of investing. So level one, in the last few years, you're always on your own. You invest on your own, right? So if you want to buy ASB, you buy ASB. You want to buy ASN, you buy ASN. We didn't tell you what to do. It's up to you. So recently, we'll give them a bit more direction by telling them, I tell you what, what's your goal? How long do you need? How much do you need? So with on that, we'll tell you, we do think that you should do this. It's not an advisory yet, but it's just a goal base. In the future, we're going to provide an advisory. Most probably telling my kids, you know what, you want to get married? When? 5 years? Okay. How much is your marriage, for example? 50,000? Your dad's not going to support you, but yeah, 50,000. Okay, fine. So this is like for 50,000 ringgit, if you want to achieve this amount of money and your risk, because you're young, your risk is very high, you're okay with losing some of the money, then you should run on this type of funds. I think what Rakuten is doing a bit right now. So what we are doing is we're trying to learn what our future clients' needs are. The hypothesis is this: if I give them the right channel, if I give them the right engagement, and if I give them the right experience, forget about the product. Product will come in later. They will stick with me for a while. Now, I'm not expecting 100% of the people will stick with this. There will be people who want to keep cash, then they will keep it at Maybank. There will be people who wants to actually go out and do funky stuff, you know, like NFTs or crypto. Then they can go at not plugging anybody, but yeah, like Luno and the rest. But for us, who've been here for 40 years, we provide some sort of security and services. So in a nutshell, Azrul, we are just trying to work with our businesses and the customers, trying to see what they want, and we'll engage them in the way that they want. And in return, we hope the loyalty will be there. If it's not there, we're doing something wrong. We'll just have to quickly change and make sure we engage them in a different way.
All right, great perspective there, Moose. Quick plug that you mentioned NFTs. Just want to tell everyone in the audience back home you're watching, we do have some NFT content for you guys as well on this conference in the next few days. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for mentioning that, Moose. Thank you. But yeah, sorry, just to go back to the panel. So Kalyani and Mise, do you guys resonate with what Muzaffar just said? Perhaps Kalyani, we can start with you first.
Sure, Azrul. Thanks. Yes, it does resonate. Whatever Moose said definitely resonates. I like to add on. I think times have changed for banks, right? A new chapter is being written as we speak today. And it's really no longer about the product, right? It is about the customer at the central point of everything we do. And how do you make them loyal is when you create experiences that resonate with them. If you're able to create experiences which resonate with them, they will continue to come back to you because you're creating something that's meaningful. Now, what is challenging for many of us would be, how do you create that emotional engagement, right? You can create experiences which are nice, which are convenient, which are friction free. But how do you take it one notch higher and create an emotional engagement is what I think will differentiate the best from the good, right? So I think that's what we should aspire to do. If you create that emotional engagement that is sticky enough, the loyalty will naturally come in. But it's tough, right? For a financial institution, it's tough, but there is a way to do it via digitally, and if we get to do it well, then there's greater hope. And honestly, you don't expect 100% of that loyalty, right? That's not something that we aspire to because it's not natural. We ourselves have a short attention span, right? You switch from Netflix to your Amazon Prime to your YouTube, so often, right? What more when it comes to your financial needs? But if you're able to create the right engagement levels, you will too. So for example, today, if you go on to Maybank to you on the desktop version, you are able to create based on what your needs are. So to whatever Moose pointed out just now, you're getting married, or you're thinking of sending your kid off in the next 10 years to study, or you're planning your retirement, or you're in the fire movement and you want to retire early, right? You can start now on Maybank to you, and we will recommend a set of portfolio for you based on your risk levels. So these are all things we do because we know your experience with a financial institution doesn't start now and end now. It starts with what you want as a personal goal, and can we help you reach that personal goal, right? And how do we gamify it for you? So for example, today when you start up a tabung, we have gamified it. So as a customer, right? And I'm sure all of you would experience it in different levels. So for me, for example, I get very guilty when I go and have dessert, right? So every time, for example, I go to Starbucks and I buy something, on the May app, I can create a booster. So anytime I spend more than X amount at Starbucks, I can tell the app, put aside 10 ringgit, for example. Every time I buy something at Starbucks, put aside 10 ringgit into my tabung for me to get into a fitness club or whatever it is that you want, right? You can actually do that and you don't even realize the money going out. The next time you open your May, suddenly you find so many boosters going into your tabung. So these are psychological things that you do to nudge the customer. And if you have the right positive nudges, it will create that attachment in some form or other. So that's what I believe will help create loyalty.
Thank you for that useful tip. I'm gonna set that up after this as well, so that every time I buy something, I'll put a little bit of money into my gym account as well. Yeah, but Kalyani, that emotional attachment is so important, and especially among the younger generation nowadays who believe that there needs to be more than just like a transactional kind of relationship between themselves and the financial institutions. So hold that thought. We'll touch that again a little bit later. But before that, Mise, I want to get your thoughts as well. With what Muzaffar and Kalyani have just talked about.
Yes, and the most important thing is trust. Yes, the customer deposit their money. This is very important. So the most important thing is to make a trust from the client is communication. It's the same as a company. The communication message is very important. Otherwise, company doesn't work, business doesn't work. So it's the same thing as a client. As Muzaffar mentioned, the channel itself doesn't care. Face to face, email, call, Facebook doesn't care. But we announce to the all of the client, oh, this is a proper channel. We make a communication with a client. Definitely, this is one thing. And to make a trust and much more a good communication, we tell our customer service. The customer service handles the client and the inquiries, everything. So They have to think about why customer call to us. We analyze it. In that case, we can deliver the proper answers to the client. So sometimes the communication is a messy, okay, ping pong game. We answer, customer give us a question again. So it's not efficient, not productivity. So that's why here we always thinking about such kind of process, always thinking about the client. Why client call to us, message to us?
Beautiful. So yeah, communication is key, and having that open line of communication with your consumers, is probably so important, especially nowadays. Thank you guys for that. So now I just want to move on to, I guess, a slightly, a bit more of on a lighter note, I suppose. So, we were mentioning just now, all of you were actually talking about how for a lot of people nowadays, their first, interaction with an FI is no longer going to the branch, tekan the number, to press the number to get your ticket and line up, right? We don't want to do that anymore. So everyone's kind of first experience, or a lot of the new generation's first experience is online through the apps and all that. So, this is going to be on the topic a little bit about aesthetics, right? And how things look. So financial institutions, you need to convey a sense of trustworthiness and a sense of growth, right? So outdated digital assets, like really bad, clunky websites and clunky apps, that conveys the opposite of that, right? So, while the good and intuitively designed touch points signal a lot of expertise. So with everything becoming virtual nowadays, how have your companies been able to overhaul, I would say, your corporate websites, your apps, and whatnot, into an effective digital solution that helps clients sort of validate their first impressions of the brand, and as well as a second step marketing tool to kind of capture your target audience? So perhaps with this, maybe we can start with Kalyani first.
Sure, Azrul, thank you. So I think it goes back to the point of the customer, right? Previously, when websites were developed, apps were developed, it was always from an inward view to an outside view, right? It all starts from the organization looking in rather than looking out. But these days, you look out rather than look in. So what I mean by that is we need to understand, how do customers navigate? What do they want? How do they feel when they're on a particular app or website? It's no longer just about, can I take you from step 1 to step 10? But how do you feel when you go through step 1 to step 10? Can I reduce that step 1 to step 10 to taking you directly probably to just 9 and 10, right? And this is something I always tell everyone, right? In the previous era, we could hide from customer experience because everything was through a branch teller system. Customers could not see anything, right? All they did was to speak to someone. So whatever you had, however clunky it was all hidden behind the customer. But in today's world, whatever app you create, whatever website you create, is right out there. Every mistake you make is obvious to the customer. So you can't afford that, right? And when we develop things, and we always believe in having the right talent as well. So the right UI UX team members, the right content people, and people even not within the industry need to be part of this group, so that when we develop something, it's never from the inside out view. And testing this out with customers is so important, because there will always be blind spots. When you think you know everything, that's the point of failure, right? Never assume that you know everything, right? The moment you're willing to be humble and and you're willing to understand what the customer pain points are and be open about it, you need to be a bit raw about it and get customers in, get them to fiddle around, understand their behavior, look at how they look at things, look at their eye movement, look at how they struggle, and keep improvising it till you have reached to a stage that you're 90% there, then you release it out. And when we speak about MVPs, right, Azrul, I've got two thoughts about it. Yes, you must be able to be agile enough to come up with MVPs, but don't create MVPs which are so raw that the experience is rotten, right? Do not compromise customer experience. If it's not good enough, you must be able to stand tall and to tell the organization, let's put a stop to it until we get it right. Don't put a half-baked thing out there and claim it's MVP, but it's full of friction, right? So I think that's so important. Those fundamental principles we must hold strong to. If the experience is not good enough, don't release it.
That's great. It's so refreshing to hear that, there's that kind of like self-reflection and an open kind of self-reflection that financial institutions need to have and to have that conversations with themselves, right, in order to best serve their clients. And that's a great view on that, a great take on that, Kalyani. Muzaffar, moving on to you, what's your take on that?
I mean, Kalyani is basically covering all of them. Perhaps I could explain the journey that we do, because we were late in the game, right? We were in 2017. Everybody's already there. So the first thing we did was copy, right? I mean, there are certain things that fundamentally can't go wrong. There are things that we copy: good people, good practices from good apps and good portals. And then the next step, what we wanted to do was to build a separate team that looks at the experience of our customers, especially in the digital channel, right? So JDV have a team that's looking at the customer experience. And we also hire very young people. Sometimes I don't understand what they're talking about, to design for us our portal and our app, which is recently launched, right? And we give them full autonomy. In other words, if you think that this is what people want, do tell me. This is like TikTok. I don't get it, but I guess billions of people get it. I don't get it, but billions of people get it. So understanding that there's a gap between what I know and what the team knows. So we allow them to do that as well. So for us, our journey will still continue. We are continuously evolving the look and feel of the app. We have yet to go like what the Maybank does, asking what the customers are doing specifically, but it's in the plan, because we need to get our basics right first. So in this journey, once the basics is right, there are people who could tell me things that I don't even imagine this thing to do, and give them an empowerment to design things that they believe the target segment is good. And then we can launch it. And like I said earlier on, I change things every 6 months. So if things doesn't work out, people doesn't feel it, like Kalyani say, emotional connection to it, we are okay to change very quickly. So it might be not the best way to approach, but it's one way to have it, and says, do you like this, guys? If the guy said, nah, this is not right, so we change it. We'll keep on changing it until one day we'll get it right. And the good thing is we are listening to our customers while doing the changes at the same time. So it's a slightly different approach, but it works for us.
All right. I just want to take a little bit of what you said there, and I think that that's really important when you said that it's a journey, right? It's a process. You got to trust the process. It doesn't happen overnight, and it shouldn't, right? So it's good to hear that the process of being able to really clarify and think through what it is the product you're trying to make, or what kind of experience you're trying to give to users before just chucking it out there and be like, hey, here's a fresh new app, shiny toy that you can download on iOS store and Play Store and whatnot. So that's really good to hear. Mise, what are your thoughts on this as well, and how has kind of like Rakuten approached this?
The Rakuten approach is very simple. And as I mentioned, our client is many of them is beginner traders. So the kind of the wording explanation, easy to understand. We don't use the technical wording. But some of them, yes, we use, but I try to avoid the technical wording for the stockbroking. And another thing is no hidden information. We disclose everything on our website, because we don't have a salesperson. So we put, for example, the brokerage and the fees, some of the corporate action rules, everything on the website. Otherwise, a lot of clients go to us. So that's why we disclose all of the information about website. So one more thing, and we focusing on if the customer call to us a lot, for example, I cannot log in. So during the pandemic period, a lot of people try to log in, but they forget the password. So in that case, after that, we post the FAQ on our the corporate website. But to do that, we reduce the client call. So such kind of the activity is very important for us. And also this practice is coming from the Rakuten Security Japan. So they have a UI UX team. So what they are thinking about mostly is yes, is that a sentence UI, UX, customer easy to understand? Every time, customer point of view, not the technology. That's it.
Thank you, Mise. I love how you mentioned that it's about having a language that's easy to understand, not too technical. It's not so much jargon, and transparency as well. Like upfront, everything's being disclosed, you know, what the clients are getting for what they pay for. And I think that leads me perfectly into the next segment where, you know, let's be honest here, like, you know, after the financial crisis, you know, a lot of financial institutions have had kind of like a bad reputation almost, especially by your everyday folks who sometimes can view them as, you know, they're to take my money and not really give me anything in return. And they've had a bad rep for that. So, and even more so nowadays, you know, people are a lot more informed, people are a lot more aware about all these kind of issues, economical issues, social issues, right? So, and nowadays, you know, consumers expect brands to play a role and take responsibility in helping them deal with like current realities, you know, whether that's related to social issues or causes, or generally just being more involved with the customers throughout the business journey, right? Rather than just, you know, you're my bank, I borrow money from you, or I put my money in my account and that's it, right? And in addition to that, consumers are becoming increasingly aware as well of the social footprints that they leave behind. So, you know, this includes things like impacts to environment, supporting, for example, fair working conditions, you know, gender equality, when they are choosing who to deal with and who to transact with. And this calls for, I'm going to steal your words, Muzaffar, like a shift in mentality within the corporate space, right? So I'm going to ask each and every one of you, perhaps we'll start with me, say first, how does this change the way in which your company kind of shapes its approach towards perhaps one, the investment options that you can provide, or the kind of investment options that you can give to your clients, and two, internally as well, when you self-reflect, how does your organization then run itself internally to reflect these values?
It's a pretty difficult question. The other panels, of course.
No worries. Yeah, if I could just rephrase that, I guess perhaps the first thing is, you know, what's Rakuten doing to kind of help their clients to be more in tune with what their, you know, personal, like social objectives are? For example, let's say, could it be, you know, adding more things into ESG, for example? Is that something that Rakuten is looking forward to doing?
Other panelists first, please.
Right. Okay. Never mind. Perhaps we can start with Moose first then, before we move on to Mise.
Yeah. So we've got multiple perspectives as an institutional investor. We realize there's a positive correlation between in a company ESG score and their ability to deliver financial dividend, right? So there's a positive correlation. So from institutional investor perspective, we are always searching for these sorts of companies to invest in. From an institution that believes that ESG is something we should go forward to, the building, if you can see the building that I have, 118, it is quite amazing in terms of amount of energy you want to try to save, water you want to try to save, the ability not to waste energy. So we are having a lot of thought to make sure that that building that we're gonna move in next year will consume as less amount of energy, will create less amount of heat, and will be healthy to our staff or our tenant when they move in. So internally, we are also practicing what we are preaching. From the third perspective, which is retail investors. Now, I understand there are people who says, I'm going to put the money where their philosophy and my philosophy is aligned, right? So for us, by virtue of being an investor that is looking at ESG score high company, rest assured that retail investors are with us, investing together with those companies that we believe is the right one to go. Now, is our portfolio, all of them is going to be high ESG? No, it takes time. There's a lot of transition process. The transition process is depending on a lot of, let's say, future government policies, right? What are the government policies? What are the global agreement that's going to impact on these decisions of being a bit more ESG? because everybody's definition at this moment in time is still not jive. And globally, it means something else. In Malaysia, it means slightly different. So this is something that we, as an investor, are looking at. And by the retail investors who are working with us or investing in our solutions, our product, rest assured that we are taking them together in our journey as well. So that's just my view on the ESG in a nutshell.
Thanks, Mus. Kalyani, your thoughts?
Sure. I'd like to touch upon two things that we have done. And it goes back to Maybank's mission. From day one, it has been about humanizing financial services. And if you try and break up those three words, right, or put them even together, you don't often hear about humanizing financial services, right? It's something very unique to Maybank. And I'll give you two examples of how we did it. For the individuals like you and me, it's about democratizing financial wellness, right? Is it right that today, only if you have X amount within a certain financial firm, you're assigned a personal financial advisor or a relationship manager? What about people like you and me? How much of advice do we get, right? So are we able to democratize that in a fair way, right? Are we able to help you manage with whatever you're earning today? It could not be much, but how do we help you stretch the dollar? How do we help you save a little bit? How do we help you spend a little bit better? And that's how May is also designed, right? The tabung, the financial portfolio I spoke about. And that advice works across for everyone. And we're able to help you manage that. Then it comes to SMEs. And this is something we did when the pandemic hit us last year. A lot of the shops that we had around our branches didn't have help. There were SMEs who were struggling because customers were no longer coming to them. They were not digitally inclined, which means they couldn't ride on the next most popular online platform to start selling, right? And number three, they couldn't afford it because the commissions were too high, right? So if you go to a mee goreng seller, that guy had totally no clue and had no one to turn to. So what we did during the pandemic was to launch Sama-Sama Local. So that is a platform. If I were to talk to you about Sama-Sama Local, you'll be wondering, does Kalyani work for Maybank or does she work for an e-commerce platform, right? Because that platform was developed solely to help the SMEs, the struggling SMEs, the local SMEs who had a very little footfall into their physical business. And we felt that we had to do something because SMEs meant a lot for Maybank. It meant a lot for the whole country. So we created this platform all from scratch within a couple of weeks, actually. And in April, I think pandemic started in March. And in April, we launched it. It's an absolutely free platform that allows SMEs to come on board. It's all DIY. You can come digitally on board. We set up the shop for you. But what's important is we'll help you connect to the millions of customers that Maybank has. And if you're a customer of Maybank and you feel that you want to help the local businesses, this is the perfect place to come because you can get things from your local delicacies, your lemang, your char kway teow, simple things which are all homemade or made available by the local neighborhood stalls. And the beauty of this is we don't charge. That is number one. But more importantly, we help you get on board. You see, a lot of these businesses, they could be very savvy on Facebook. They could be a TikTok user. But when it comes to selling things online, they struggle, right? Communicating with customers, when customers buy their stuff online, they struggle. How to package their items to be sold or to be sent, they struggle. So this is where, because we've got branches nationwide, these branches are mobilized. They will go around helping their neighborhood stalls, teaching them how to set it up, how to place, how to even create the right content. And then we also help them market their content online. So we don't just give you a platform. We actually help you come on board. We help you sell. We figure out what's going wrong and how to get more customers to your platform or to your online shop. So we feel that these are things that, that we can do to actually make a difference to the community that we are in. And that, I feel, is no better way than to say that we are really humanizing financial services.
That's amazing, Kalyani. The steps that Maybank is taking there to get back and to help out the community that they serve, right? And it's really heartwarming to hear these initiatives being played out. So thank you guys. Actually, we're just about almost done, so we have about 10 minutes to go for some Q&A. So we have quite a lot of questions that the audience have thrown in for us. I don't think we have time to go through all of them, but I'll pick out the best ones that are voted by the audience. So the first one here that we have, the question is, digital fit must also be accompanied by digitally secure. So what and where is our level of security currently within the digital space of financial institutions? So I guess perhaps maybe Muzaffar, you want to take this first.
Yeah, security is given. It's no longer talking about security is number one. Security is given. We don't go out to the market. We don't have anything that we did not test 10 times. I mean, before we go out to the market. So rest assured, when any technology company, especially like Rakuten or Maybank, when we build our application or our services on the digital channel or digitally enabled channel, everything was tested, making sure that there's no data leakage of our customers, making sure that the scamming processes are being tight, because there's a lot of scammers nowadays. They pretend to be Maybank agent, ASMB agent, and they just, they're trying to get as much information as possible. But the responsibility is also at the unit holder or the customer level. So it's very important that the breaches normally is when somebody shared some password somewhere, right? Or the password is easily guessed password. So that happens. So for us, I think I would say to myself, from a CTO perspective, it's tested and tested and tested, and we really make sure that it's strong enough before we go to the market.
All right, Mise, can we get your thoughts a bit on cybersecurity?
There are two things we need to highlight, and they protect our database. Yes, as Muzaffar mentioned, definitely we subscribe to some of the services to monitor our system. And the second thing in the to protect client, and maybe we are thinking about the second layer, something like a login identification. Yeah, actually, in Japan, such kind of the scam activity is has been increasing. So to protect the customer, the login password and tipping is not enough. Especially the trading execution and the withdrawal of the money is the most important. So we try to install the new technology for this field to protect the client.
All right, thanks. And the next question we have, I think this would fit in pretty well with what Kalyani just mentioned just now about doing the summer local and stuff like that. So Kalyani, I guess I just direct this to you. So how do you see the ever fading lines of FIs with newcomers like Shopee and Grab? They have like Shopee Pay, Grab Pay, and all this kind of stuff that arguably can offer more things to customers. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think we should welcome competition. We should welcome new energy into the field, and it'll help keep everyone on their toes, right? I mean, it's a large enough playground. And instead of looking at them as competitors, we should embrace the players and look at what's important for the client. If you don't lose focus of the client, of the customer, I think the battle is already half won, right? So it's fantastic, right? More choices, more options for customers, makes you think even a little bit outside the box. So I think it's fantastic.
Perfect. All right, I think we've just have about one last question that I would say. I'm so sorry. I know it's been such a great panel, but I need to limit it to like about 2 minutes per person for this last question. And this question, yeah, to all of you. So should banks or FIs think about collaborations with smaller fintechs? Is it more cost effective to do so, to develop solutions that way, or do you guys still see most of the things happening in-house? So what are your thoughts on that? Just a quick one, guys, 2 minutes each. So perhaps we'll start with Muzaffar first.
We welcome connectivity with fintechs. In fact, we have built API platforms that can connect to any fintech companies, provided that the business makes sense, the collaboration makes sense, right? So our technology enables to connect to anybody, anywhere. So for us, we believe in connecting to people like Boost, people like Touch and Go. We even extend our APIs to Maybank. So for us, we are open and we believe this is the way to go. There's no question about we should cannibalize or who cannibalize ours. Like Kalyani said, it is an open ecosystem now. The world has changed. So we need to be able to work together and basically to make ourselves stronger, each other stronger. I guess you should build on us, we should build on you as well. There are things that you know better than we do, but there are things that we know better than you do. So together, when we work together, we'll be better together. So I think in a nutshell, yeah, we should work together. And my capability from technology-wise has enabled that.
Better together, just like Jack Johnson said in his song.
Yes.
Next, Kalyani, could you give your thoughts as well on that, on working together with fintechs?
I think we should, because you can't be building everything for everyone, right? It doesn't make sense, right? So we should leverage on the strength that we have as a firm, and we should leverage the strength that other firms have. And if it complements each other, then yes, we should. It only makes sense, right? To the customer. If it makes sense to the customer, then it makes sense to us.
All right. And lastly, Mise, what are your thoughts?
Actually, we are currently working with the fintech company. For example, the marketing promotion wise and the Boost, Touch and Go. But toward the future, yes, as I mentioned first, everything that customer demands, the voice of the customer is the first. Definitely, if we need high technology, difficult technology, yes, we tie up with the other fintech companies, and they are very simple thing. Okay, we can build the in-house, but everything coming from the customer. Without the customer demand, we will work with the fintech.
All right, thank you. So that's just about enough time that we have for today. Before we go, I just want to thank each and every one of you for coming out here today to spend your time and to talk about this with us. I'm sure the audience has gained a lot of valuable insight and knowledge from all three of you who are extremely successful in your own respective industries. So thank you guys, thank you for coming, and I hope to see you again next time. Before we leave, I'd just like to let everybody know to stay tuned to SC by SC. We've got a lot more content coming up for you on stage 1, which is this stage, and as well as on stage 2 for the afternoon session, where we'll be having Islamic fintech options and as well as a lot about RegTech as well on stage 2. So stay tuned, everybody, and I hope to see you soon. Have a great conference, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.